When I married Daniel, I thought I understood what stability looked like. He was everything I wasn't used to. Calm, grounded, and far from the whirlwind romances I had known in my 20s. At 33, I had stopped chasing passion and started choosing peace. Daniel offered me that in abundance. Our home was quiet, predictable, and safe. There was just one part of his life I hadn't fully touched: his son, Liam. He came up often in conversation. Daniel spoke of him with a mixture of pride and distance, like a father who admired his child's independence, but didn't quite know how to reach him. Liam had been studying abroad in England since he was 15, shortly after losing his mother. Daniel rarely talked about his late wife, but I gathered she'd been the love of his life. I had never seen a photo of her. Maybe he thought it would be disrespectful. Maybe I never asked. I had seen pictures of Liam, though. A quiet boy with serious eyes and an awkward smile. In the snapshots Daniel showed me, Liam always seemed slightly removed from the moment, like he was never truly present. I imagined he'd be reserved, academic, and possibly a little cold. One evening, out of the blue, Daniel told me Liam was coming to live with us, indefinitely. "He's finished his degree," he said, sipping wine over dinner. "Wants to explore life back here for a while. You'll finally meet him." I smiled, trying to match his excitement, but something in my chest tightened. I wasn't nervous, just unsure. How do you prepare to meet someone so deeply woven into your husband's past? Someone who had known the woman before you? I spent the next week preparing his room, dusting shelves and filling drawers with new linens. I stocked the fridge with things Daniel said Liam liked, even though I wasn't sure if those preferences still held true. The air in the house felt charged, like something long dormant was waking up. Then the day arrived. I was alone when the doorbell rang. Daniel had been called into a meeting and texted to apologize for not being there to welcome his son. I smoothed my dress, steadied my breath, and opened the door. And froze. The man standing there wasn't the boy from the photos. Liam was taller than I expected, broad-shouldered, with a presence that filled the doorway. His hair was darker, his jaw sharper, and his eyes, those eyes, deep, steady, unreadable. There was a quiet confidence in his stance and something else, a flicker of emotion I couldn't name. "Hi," he said, his voice smooth, with a faint accent that lingered on the edges of his words. "You must be her." "Welcome home," I managed, stepping aside. My heart was pounding, and I wasn't sure why. As he crossed the threshold, I realized something unsettling. Liam wasn't just Daniel's son anymore. He was someone I couldn't ignore. And something had just begun. Liam settled in effortlessly, as though the house had always been his. He moved with the easy confidence of someone unbothered by awkward transitions. Within days, his presence seeped into the rhythm of my daily life: soft footsteps in the hall, late-night music playing behind his door, the lingering trace of his cologne in shared spaces. He was polite, unfailingly so, but not distant. He asked questions, thoughtful ones. He seemed genuinely interested in my work, my background, even the smallest quirks I thought no one noticed. There was something disarming about the way he listened, like he heard more than I said. At first, I brushed it off as curiosity. After all, we were technically strangers. But the way he looked at me, steady, unblinking, began to erode the walls I had built to keep our roles defined. One morning, I caught him watching me as I watered the plants in the kitchen. When I turned, he smiled. Calm, assured, not the least bit embarrassed. "You have a graceful way of doing ordinary things," he said. "Like you were meant to be here." It was an odd comment. Beautiful, but inappropriate. I laughed it off, choosing not to respond, but the words lingered longer than I wanted to admit. From then on, something shifted. I found myself noticing Liam in ways I shouldn't. The way he leaned over the counter while talking, sleeves rolled just enough to reveal strong forearms. The way his voice dipped when he spoke my name. I started waking up earlier, dressing with a little more care, checking my reflection before walking downstairs. We began having long conversations after Daniel went to bed. At first, we talked about books, films, the dull ache of missing one's youth. But gradually, our dialogue became more intimate. Confessions wrapped in metaphors, truths gently hidden behind laughter. I used to think love had to be loud, he said one night, but I'm starting to believe it can be quiet, slow, unnoticed by everyone but the two who feel it. I didn't answer, but my silence said enough. I could feel the air between us change, charged, unsteady. Still, I told myself nothing had happened. We hadn't touched, hadn't crossed any lines, but the truth was murkier. The betrayal wasn't in action, but in emotion. I had begun to
The days that followed felt like walking a narrow bridge between desire and denial. I kept busy,
The
cleaning
final
rooms that
confirmation
didn't need
came
it,
during a late
organizing
afternoon
shelves
walk.
I had ignored for years.
As we neared the garden,
But no matter how
our
much I
fingers
tried to
brushed,
avoid
and
him,
neither of us
Liam
pulled
was
away.
always there,
It was a fleeting
present,
contact,
watching.
innocent by appearance, but
Daniel,
I felt it like
unaware of
lightning.
the undercurrent growing between his wife
Later
and son,
that evening, as I
remained
passed
his usual
room,
trusting self.
he called out softly,
He worked late,
"You don't
came
have to
home
pretend."
tired, and trusted that
I
the
feel it
harmony of our
too.
household was intact.
I stood
That trust
frozen,
began to weigh
his
heavily
words pressing
on
into my
me.
back, like a secret
Every
I
glance
couldn't
Liam and I
carry.
exchanged felt like a stolen
said
moment
nothing,
behind Daniel's back,
and walked away.
I hated myself
But I knew
for
nothing would be the
it,
same
yet I craved
again.
it all the same. One night, the house was unusually still. Rain tapped against the windows like a metronome for the storm building in my chest. I was curled on the couch, thumbing through an old book I wasn't reading when I heard the soft creak of the stairs. Liam. He moved toward me without a word, his footsteps deliberate. When he sat beside me, our knees brushed. I didn't move away. "We can't keep doing this," I whispered, unsure if I meant the words. "I know," he said, his voice low, intimate. "But that doesn't make it stop." There was a long silence. Then, without warning, he reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers brushed my skin, sending a pulse of something sharp and unforgivable through me. "I've tried to stop thinking about you," he continued. "But the more I try, the more impossible it becomes." I should have stood up. I should have said no. Instead, I looked at him. Really looked. And I saw the same torment in his eyes that burned in mine. It wasn't lust alone. It was confusion, longing, maybe even love. Then it happened. He leaned in, slow and deliberate, giving me every chance to stop him. I didn't. Our lips met in a kiss that shattered the last of my defenses. It wasn't frantic or wild. It was hesitant, almost mournful, like we both understood we were breaking something sacred. When we finally pulled apart, I couldn't look at him. "I'm sorry," I breathed, not sure who I was apologizing to. Liam stood up, jaw clenched. "We crossed a line. I know. But lying to ourselves any longer would have been worse." And with that, he disappeared up the stairs, leaving me alone in the dark with my guilt. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay beside Daniel, his hand draped over mine in perfect trust, and stared at the ceiling. A storm had been unleashed, and I wasn't sure any of us would survive what came next. The days after the kiss moved slowly, too slowly, as if time itself hesitated, unsure whether to move forward or collapse under the weight of what had happened. I avoided Liam, though his presence clung to every corner of the house like a shadow. He avoided me too, but it wasn't out of regret. It was restraint. Daniel noticed a change in me. Of course he did. He wasn't the type to pry, but he observed everything. You seem distant lately, he said one evening, his eyes searching. Are you unhappy? The question nearly broke me. No, I replied too quickly. Just tired. Work's been draining. He nodded, but the quiet lingered between us like an open wound. Meanwhile, Liam buried himself in errands and late-night drives. When he returned, he never looked me in the eye. But that didn't make the feelings vanish. They only grew, twisted, by guilt and silence. We had done something unforgivable. And yet, my heart betrayed me each time I heard the door creak or his footsteps across the hall. Then, it all came crashing down. Daniel found Liam's journal. It had been left open on the living room table, recklessly, foolishly, or maybe subconsciously. I wasn't there when it happened. All I know is that when I returned from the store, the house was silent in a way I'd never felt before, like something had died. Daniel was sitting at the dining table, the journal before him, pages still open. His eyes met mine, bloodshot, hollow, betrayed. Is it true? He asked quietly, voice shaking. Did you? I couldn't answer. My silence spoke louder than anything I could have said. His face collapsed, not in rage, but in grief. Pure, quiet devastation. I trusted you. Both of you, he said, barely above a whisper. You were supposed to be my peace. I never meant to hurt you, I whispered, tears finally falling. I didn't plan for any of this. But you let it happen. That was the truth. I had let it happen. Liam came downstairs moments later, sensing the tension before seeing it. When he realized what Daniel had discovered, he didn't defend himself. He just stood there, eyes filled with shame and something else, defiance, perhaps, or sorrow. I'll leave, he said calmly. Tonight. Daniel didn't stop him. That night, Liam packed a single bag. As he walked past me at the front door, he paused for just a second. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Everything that could have been said was already written, in the ruin we left behind. When the door shut behind him, I felt the weight of finality. The fantasy was over. The damage was real, and the silence that followed was the loudest sound I had ever known. I lost a husband. Liam lost a father. And we both lost something even greater. The fragile belief that love, no matter how forbidden, could survive unscathed.